Hello, my name is Louise, and I'm a trainer with ENS. And today I have with me Jeremiah Archambault. And Jeremiah is going to talk to us a little bit today about some of the best practices for the digital sign. This is for the owners of the digital sign as well as their graphic artists.
Thanks,
Jeremiah.
Louise. Well, when we talk about digital sign best practices, what we mean by that is basically resolution, because there's different resolutions for print versus video or LCD or plasma, or what you now know today as digital signage.
Right.
So on the next couple of slides, I'm going to go through a little bit about what are best practices for those resolutions.
Okay.
So as an introduction to us first, what you're going to see here in my hand is a little sign box. This is something that we engineer and do the programming for. And on the next slide here, you're going to see that we're specialists at putting these behind plasmas or LCDs and turning them into digital signs.
Right.
So very much our company is invisible, if you will. But we see firsthand how clients get frustrated by not being able to get the right kind of resolutions from their suppliers who wish to advertise in their locations.
Right.
So if we could go to full video here for a second, what you're going to see is this is standard portrait install with a 22-inch monitor. Now this monitor is actually 1680 pixels high and 1050 wide. And what I want to show you is that the advertising that was received by this digital sign owner is this Budweiser is perfect. You can see
Right.
it fits the full size. This one here with the Molson's Canadian, Molson Canadian, is almost perfect, but there's little black areas on the left and to the right.
Right.
Now that's because this was originally made for print. Here is another advertisement that was actually sent, but made really for landscape rather than for portraits. So they have these large black areas here.
Right.
So we're going to discuss this a little further on the next slide here insofar as some best practices. Now, when you're looking at a monitor like this in portrait, you should be using either 1024 by 768, 1280 by 1024, 1680 by 1050, which is what this resolution
Right.
is, or the new high definition, which is 1920 by 1080. Now, of course, if you're looking to do something in landscape, like what you see behind us here, which is a larger digital sign, you want to be looking at 1024 by 768, 1280 by 1024, and so on. What's happened here is we've just switched, of course, the resolutions for horizontal and vertical.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Okay.
Now, here's the surprise. The monitor that's behind us, which is a large Panasonic Plasma, is actually resolution of 1024 by 768. This little 22-inch one here is actually 1680 by, or 1050 rather, by 1680. So you want to know some best practices going in beforehand if you're making digital signage advertising as to what resolution monitors you're going to be working with.
Right.
So to give some examples here, on the next slide what you're going to see is a Budweiser ad we received. It was received to us from Budweiser as 1024 by 476, which is perfect for any kind of web advertising or for smaller print advertising.
Right.
Now, in the case of the monitor behind us, that really should have been 1024 by 768.
Okay.
Now, if we were going to take this monitor in front of us, which is 1680 by 1050, even though this is smaller, on the next slide you're going to see we should have had this at 1680 by 1050.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, you're going to notice below here we've said 72 or 96 DPI.
Yes.
This is another important part. Graphic designers that are used to doing graphic design for print,
Very high resolution.
very high resolution. Whereas monitors, there's a maximum resolution that the eye can really see. So most monitors are set standard for 72 DPI, but you're actually safe if you use 96.
Okay.
So next slide. Back up one. What you're going to see here is this is Alexander Keith's. They sent a 1024 by 187, and recommendation in this case would be to use more green space top and bottom. So 1680 by 1050, for example, if it was on this kind of monitor in landscape.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Right.
next slide. Now, this is one from Coors Light. You can see here it is 9,000 by 7,200 pixels. at 300 dpi.
Huge file.
Huge file, which is perfect for print. So that file would have originally been made for doing large postering. Now in the case of trying to scale that onto a monitor, like the one behind us here, that would leave black space on the left and to the right.
Right.
So really the graphic designer should first look at what resolution, so it doesn't need to be quite that large of a file size, lower the DPI down to say 72 or 96 DPI, and look at some kind of cropping so that it fits that resolution.
Okay.
Okay? So in the next slide here, what you're going to see is same thing with, this is Molson Canadian. The original ad is much larger resolution than the actual monitor. And that's why you see the black space on the side is the scaling doesn't quite fit.
Right.
So a best practice would be when creating graphic design, digital signage is a new medium that you want to be aware that you should be looking at these kind of resolutions as well as your normal print advertising.
Right. Right.
Okay. Next one. Alexander Keys. Again, we received a 1024 by 187 for the purpose of putting it in portrait. So best practice, of course, would be if you're looking at portrait, maybe 1680 by 1050, and putting more advertising space in. Otherwise, that's going to be a fairly
narrow band in a full screen and lots of black space.
Exactly right. So that's a bit of a 1, 2, 3 step of understanding digital signage resolutions. And to recap here, 1024 by 768. You're pretty safe with that. 1280 by 1024, there are a few monitors that ask for that. We find that right now the best resolution that's standard across most computers is 1680 by 1050, and be aware that's going to start shifting in the next couple of years to 1920 by 1080.
As we get larger and larger monitors or
higher and higher resolution.
Higher and higher resolution.
You got it. And we think 1920 by 1080 will become new standard across all platforms over the next couple of years. But right now, best practice is 1024 by 768 and 1680 by 1050.
Okay. And then this is, this next slide is again, if they're landscape, you just reverse the figures and...
Exactly.
Okay.
And for any graphic designers that are used to doing print advertising, you're going to find this is quite surprising how small the file size is. You're going to go from 20 or 30 meg file sizes down to average file size should be somewhere around a meg.
Right. And can they send you the files in any format, or is there a format they should be sending you the files in, like PDF, JPEG? What
Good
format
question.
should they be sending them in?
Good question. Most graphic design is done for print, and print usually uses PDF.
Yes.
Whereas when you're going to digital signage, it uses web standards, which is JPEG.
Okay.
So what you want to do is have a JPEG image in high resolution, so 96 DPI, and best practice is, of course, once you produce that image, you want to look at it on your monitor and make sure that it's a fairly clear image. For example, these are very clear images.
Yes, just the wrong size.
Just the wrong size.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jeremiah, for going over these best practice standards. And thank you all for watching. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please give us a call at 250-483-4719. And have a great day.
Thank you.